So your pizza is probably done in like 4 minutes.
So like everything is obliterated and turns to dust inside.
The big difference between most American ovens and European ovens is that we usually only have the heating element on the bottom.
Well, hello there. Long time no see. I'm sure you're wondering what's going on, and I will discuss it at the end of the video for those interested. Today we're exploring a fascinating topic that will intrigue you: the stark contrasts between European and American ovens. It's a chat with Helen Rennie that we recorded a while back. It was pretty eye-opening for the both of us, so I'm sure it will be for you too. Well, enough babble. Let's get into the oven chat. All right, so today I have a very special guest who's going to help me figure out what the differences between American and European ovens are, and it's Helen. And she has an awesome YouTube channel, which is definitely based a lot in science, like kind of how I do it. And if you don't know her, I think you should go follow her because she has so many valuable videos, but they're mostly about cooking, while my videos are mostly about baking. So we did a video on her channel about cooktops, induction versus gas, and then we're going to do a video on this channel about ovens because baking is my focus. All right, Helen, tell a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Helen. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a cooking instructor. So I teach cooking classes to real-life humans in my kitchen. And I also make cooking videos on YouTube.
Yes, and you have quite the following. And I guess people really like to have evidence-based content.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's so much content out there. How do you know the recipes will work? It's good to know that somebody really tested them.
I mean, and definitely in my case, I'd love to know whether or not my recipes would work generally on an American oven. I mean, I think I have enough people who say that they have success with the recipes to believe that it will work, but I don't know what they changed. Maybe they're like savvy bakers and they just know to like turn down the oven a little bit or like put it, like definitely one thing I noticed that happens a lot is that people complain that their bread will get scorched on the bottom. And I think that definitely has to do with how the coils work inside. I mean, I think in American ovens, the coils are exposed. In the Danish ovens or the European ovens, the coils are underneath a layer of metal. And I think that evens out the heat more.
So the big difference between most American ovens and European ovens is that we usually only have the heating element on the bottom. That's why the bread is scorching. It's true. So first of all, there is no such thing as American oven, European oven. All ovens are different, absolutely. But most of the ovens in the US only have one heating element, and that's on the bottom. So you get way more heat from the bottom. And many American ovens do not have a convection fan. And so if you have a convection fan, the heat is much more redistributed. And you mentioned that most European ovens all have a convection fan.
I went and checked at my local site for ovens, and they only had one oven out of I think 157 ovens that didn't have convection. So, and that was the one for $100. I don't know how it could be that cheap, but I guess it's okay. It doesn't have convection then. But generally, the European ovens will have a bottom coil and a top coil. And if they have convection, they'll have heating behind the fan as well. And if your oven has broiling function, that sits at the top. We call that grill. And that's an exposed coil. And I definitely use that like for making pizza. Then I put my pan all the way to the top of the oven, just below that grill thing. And you get something that I think it's not the same as a wood-fired oven, but it's definitely a lot better than what you usually get in an oven.
So we actually recorded little tours of our ovens. Should we show that to our viewers so that they get a rough idea? Because you have so many cool bells and whistles that I want to ask you about.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look at them.
All right, here is a tour of my oven. It is 30 inches or 76 centimeters. And here we go. It has a couple of racks. There is only one heating element, and that is underneath the bottom. That's for the oven. There is also a heating element on top, that is the broiler. But when you are on the normal baking setting, the broiler does not come on. That box with holes in the back is the convection fan. It does not have a heating element behind it, but it does blow the air around during baking. And here are all the controls that I have. This one turns the light on and off inside the oven. This sets the temperature or changes to broil. You can either have oven on or broiler on. And here, if I have the oven on, this button turns on the convection fan.
All right, this is my oven. I'm sure you've seen it in many videos. It has 44 centimeters of usable space between the racks. There's 5 racks. There is like an indentation at the bottom for steaming. And there's 2 heating elements. There's one at the bottom and one at the top. And on top of that, there is a broiler or grill, as we call it, element at the top. All of that can be controlled separately. Let's have a look at the functions. All right, so for the functions, we have turbo heating. We have convection, including steam. We have just convection. We have heating from the top and the bottom with no convection. We have heating from the bottom with no convection. We have defrosting. We have wet convection. I've never used that. I don't know what that is. We have grill, and we have grill including convection. And this last one is for cleaning. It's pyrolyse. I don't know what that's called in English, but it turns on to about 800 degrees, and like everything is obliterated and turns to dust inside. So it's very easy to clean. The oven is also on 380 volts, which makes it super powerful, quick to heat, and it goes all the way to 300 degrees Celsius, which I only ever use for pizza.
So I actually have some questions for you about all the interesting settings that you have in your oven. So I've noticed that they have this very helpful diagrams of like a fan or a little bar on top for top element, a little bar on the bottom for bottom element to show you what's happening for different settings. And one of them had an element on the bottom and a fan, picture of a fan. So does this mean that if you are using your convection fan, only the bottom element comes on? Or is there a setting for both elements to be on with a fan?
You know what? I don't know what elements are on, but I think both elements are on, plus the one behind the fan when you just put it on normal convection. That's like it has this round thing. It's the most I have a like speed heating setting, and then the next one is convection. It has 2 convection modes. It's an oven with steam, so you can also have steamed convection, which can definitely help even out the browning. Or I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could use it. I've definitely baked bread using the steam function. I just don't use it in my videos because people don't necessarily have it. So I'll try a different version that they can do. Right? It's great. It it helps the bread rise, and you just pour about a cup of water at the bottom, and then you press a button, and it just starts steaming.
So in the US, we do that too, but we have to put a little pan. Basically, I have this disposable pan because it's such a big heat change where it's sitting on the bottom of my oven. Then I throw ice cubes in it. And so my good pans would warp if I did that to them all the time. So I have a little disposable pan that I put on the bottom, and I throw ice cubes or pour some water in. But it's nice that your oven, you don't even have to put any pan in. It has a little divot where you pour the water in. Is it possible to do steam convection in your oven on very low heat, like a CVAP oven? CVAP ovens are ovens that restaurants have. It's similar to sous vide. It's very low heat.
You can go all the way
with
down
steam.
to 30 degrees Celsius. I think that's 86 degrees Fahrenheit.
Whoa.
So
So do you use your
used
oven instead of sous vide?
Well, it kind of depends on what I'm doing, but yes, you can. I mean, if it's a long time cook, it's easier to do it that way, I think. But otherwise, I use it for drying things.
So you can use it as a dehydrator because your oven can go so low in temperature.
Yes. I even use it to dehydrate my filament for my 3D printer.
Whoa, that's amazing. So it sounds like you could use this to replace your sous vide setup potentially. Maybe not for everything, but for many things. If you're doing a steak, you could do it with steam at low temperature.
You can't be as precise. You can't say, steak. I'd go for maybe 56 degrees Celsius, and my options are 50 or 60. Do you know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. But it's kind of like reverse sear, but maybe it would give you a little bit more leeway, because reverse sear, when your steak is done, you have a little bit of flexibility with time, but not infinite flexibility the way you have with sous vide.
I think it definitely, if you don't want to invest in a sous vide setup, then I think it can probably do most of the things that you do on sous vide anyway, just directly in the oven.
And you have an exceptionally high heat. So I have a feeling that most things that people like air fryers for, you could probably just do in your oven.
Yes. It goes all the way to 300 degrees Celsius, I think 576 Fahrenheit.
70, yeah. That's higher than my oven goes.
Yes, that's definitely what I use for the pizza as well. So I use 300 degrees plus the broiler. And then I put what do you call that? A baking steel inside, because that absorbs the heat. So that when I open the oven, it's not going to cool down immediately.
Yeah, so your pizza is probably done in 4 minutes.
Yes, yes.
Are air fryers a big thing in Europe? Or
Oh, yeah.
do people not really need them
It's a
because they
fad.
have ovens like yours?
Well, personally,
Do you have one?
I have one. It's a Breville. It's called the Smart Oven Pro, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little more than an air fryer, I would say, but it's great. I try to bake bread in it. That works too. Mm-hmm. But that only goes to 225, so that's about 430 or something.
Does Breville Smart Oven do anything your regular oven doesn't do?
If I could get a pan that would make it able to get heat all around things. I do have this air fryer basket. If I had that for my oven, I think I could probably do it. But what I like, my kids are older, so they moved out, and then I don't really use my oven very much anymore. I use the air fryer. Because
it's smaller.
It's smaller, so it uses less power to heat.
Faster to preheat.
Yes. So I think there's a practicality in it. Or even, if you want to do, I don't know, chicken nuggets or something, maybe you put those on air fryer mode in there, and then you might do something else. I think you can make some delicious oven roasted potatoes in the oven. So you don't need the air fryer for that. So it's definitely a big thing, and there's all the bloggers are doing air fryer recipes and all that.
But your regular oven could do most of that stuff.
Yes, definitely.
In about the same way. Just it would take longer to preheat and uses more energy.
Yes, and I mean it's a huge, for Danish standards, I got the biggest volume oven. Mm-hmm. So it is pretty big, and it does take a while to heat. But since it's a relatively new one, it actually heats faster than my old oven used to.
How long does it roughly take to preheat it? To say 180 Celsius?
If I put it on the fast mode, I would say 2-3 minutes maybe.
2-3 minutes? Oh my gosh, my oven would take at least 10 minutes, I think, to get there.
Okay. I mean, I like I said, it is super fast. Mm-hmm. It's really...
But also I have only one heating element, and the oven itself is bigger.
Yes.
Here's an interesting thing about European versus American ovens is most European ovens are smaller. size-wise. But what I've noticed when I was cooking with one in Denmark is that you slide a baking sheet right into the sides, and first it made me nervous because I thought that the part near the wall would burn. It would cook a lot faster. But because of convection, it actually cooked great. Everything browned very evenly.
I've
So
never
even
had an
though
oven
the
that,
space is smaller.
even before convection, I didn't have an oven that didn't work this way. I think it worked even in the old ovens.
Oh, that you slide the baking sheet into the sides, and that's fine.
Yes. So how do you,
That's
do
really
you
cool.
have like racks then that you slide the baking sheet
We
on
have
top?
racks, and we have to put our baking sheets on racks.
All right. So we can put a rack in those slides if we want to. We have racks as an accessory, but you don't need to use it. And I think those are much bigger. The pans that go in the oven are bigger I think in European ovens, because you have these, they're like smaller than a rack size, aren't they? The pans that you use.
So I think your oven is smaller, but your pans are bigger
Yes.
because they go right into the walls.
Yes, and we have. I have two different ones. I have one that's quite thick, which is great for, like, let's say a focaccia, for example. And then I have the ones that are like maybe this, and then there's the flat ones. So, and my previous
and they
oven,
all slide into the sides.
yes, my previous oven was a different brand, but definitely the same overall brand. It was Electrolux. This new one is AEG, but I kept every pan because they were the same ones.
Are they compatible between ovens? Like if you get a new oven, will the old pan slide into your new oven?
I don't know.
But the oven comes with pans, right? So
Yes, but having 5 pans instead of, like, let's say you're preparing something and you have like 3 pans in the oven and you want to prepare more, it's great to have even more pans. So I like having the extra versatility.
And when you're buying your pans, you buy them from your oven manufacturer so
Yes.
that they fit your oven?
Yes. But I do think that they're
for us-
probably compatible, but I've never tried not buying from the manufacturer.
So for us, the oven comes with racks, but it does not come with pans. We all buy our own pans. So here's a question for you about the European oven. In American ovens, it would be unthinkable for me to put 2 layers of roasted vegetables. Like, say, I have one pan with roasted vegetables and another pan to slide one on top of the other, because the top one would not really brown. The bottom pan would absorb all the heat because you're heating elements on the bottom. In a European oven like yours, could you put 2 baking sheets at the same time and
I would
have
say
the
even
top
3.
one still brown?
Yes.
Even 3.
Yes, but it
And I'm not
requires
talking
convection.
like cookies. With convection.
It has to be.
Okay.
But I mean, there's the good old trick with like moving the pans around during baking or that sort of stuff, right? And I will often put that in my recipe. I'm saying maybe you want to switch them halfway if you know your oven heats unevenly. But I don't need to. And I'll use convection most of the time. It's only for like delicate cakes that I don't use it because I want the top to be soft. But even a cookie, I mean, I know American cookies are very different from European cookies. We like our cookies crunchy, but Americans like soft cookies. So
Yeah, it depends, like the gooey
Yes.
chocolate chip cookies.
so I think that would make a difference. I wouldn't turn convection on if I was making some like that.
So I recently got a question on my channel from someone asking, is convection good for cakes? I think it's a very general question because, well, there's so many different types of cakes, and there's also lots of different types of convection. For example, my convection fan, it's kind of like a hurricane. When it blows, everything browns on top almost a little bit too much, versus their slow convection fans. But it was interesting for me that you mentioned you do not use convection for cakes, even though
I mean, it
you
browns
have it.
too much too, or sort of unevenly, I would say. So that's where I turn it off. Or if I want on my sourdough bread, I want like a very delicate crust that's not crunchy, then I might turn it off as well. Or let's say I use steam in the oven and I don't use the built-in steam function, I will probably turn the convection off, because then I put the pan at the bottom, pour in boiling water, and let the oven steam, right? Then if I open the oven, the convection fan is just going to blow all that steam out.
Oh, here's a question about convection fan blowing things off. There are certain pastries, like when I make eclairs, I sprinkle them with powdered sugar so that they come out extra crunchy and so that it slows down them crisping up so they can poof up as much as possible. Would a convection fan blow all that sugar off of them? Do you have to be careful? In my oven, I do not use convection for eclairs, but
I don't think I'd
what
be
would
worried
happen
in
if
my
you-
oven, to be honest. But I think it might vary depending on your oven. I mean, if it's as powerful as yours. But I think the reason why yours is that powerful is because it doesn't come with a heating element. Mine comes with a heating element.
Heating element, so it doesn't have to blow like a, you know.
No, it just blows,
hurricane.
hot air out into the oven. I mean, it still uses the coils as well, right? But I think it makes for a lot more even heating.
I noticed that your oven has a setting where the top and bottom elements are turned on, but there's no convection. When would you want something like that?
Well, I think that would probably be like baking a cake. I wouldn't,
So
and
when
then I
you're
would bake it
baking a cake.
on the middle rack, something like that. I wouldn't want it to be as like close to the top element. But like I said, because there's two elements in the oven, they heat a lot more. It's not as violent, the heat, because you have two elements heating it.
So they probably can cycle on and off. I mean, mine cycles on and off too, but it has to come on very frequently because it's the only source of heat.
And in this case, even with convection on, it doesn't have to cycle as often, because maybe the top one goes on and the bottom one goes on, or maybe I think the one in the convection is probably on the whole time.
I heard from many of my students who are buying more modern ovens in the US right now that the ovens try to be very smart about convection fan. And if you turn it on, they automatically lower the temperature for you.
Oh,
Does your oven do that?
No.
Like, say you set it to 180 Celsius. If you turn convection fan on, does it drop it by
no.
I don't know.
I bought this because I want a manual oven. I don't want it to do any doohickey, do-dat kind of thing like that. And then I think it's 180, but it isn't. Then I'm like, what's going on here? Do you know what I mean? I want to know that, because, I know recipes say to turn down the heat by 20 degrees, which would probably be close to 40 Fahrenheit. I very seldom do that. It might be finished before, like earlier, but I don't think, I think always timing in an oven or in a pan, it's going to vary. You can't say do it for 3 minutes and then it's just always going to be finished.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So you need to also
factors.
provide people with, what are you looking for?
It's true that all ovens are completely different. You have to watch your finished product and not just watch the recipe, how many minutes at what temperature. But I've noticed that if I am cooking from an American recipe developer or cookbook or YouTube video, especially for baking, if they're saying to bake these cookies at 350 Fahrenheit, which is about 180 C, for this many minutes, if they do not specify what to do with convection, the default is always no convection. What is it like in European recipes?
I think they will give both, because all ovens can turn it off in Denmark. Because I heard somebody in the States that had convection, they're like, I don't have an option to turn it off. I'm like, oh.
I heard that from somebody from England too, that in order to save energy, some new manufacturers make it impossible to turn off convection. But if I got a Danish recipe for some baked goods, some cake, would they tell me if they want me to use convection or not?
They would. They would usually say bake it without convection at 200 and with convection at 180, something like that.
So they would be explicit about both the temperature and convection or no convection. They would never just not mention convection, like just say
it's
bake
too
it
common.
at.
It's just too common to assume that people don't have it. I think people really want the recipe with convection if possible. Because it is
So
faster.
they would always specify.
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know because I have tons of baking books. I just got Dessert Person. I have Rose Berenbaum. Most recipes will just say temperature and time, will not say anything about convection. And if you dig up some information from this writer or find some article they wrote somewhere, you'll see them saying that I always assume no convection. If I want convection, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm. But I think I'm sure convection is going to get more common in the States as well. Like
it is definitely becoming more common.
It's going to be more common.
Yeah.
So as that happens, the recipes will change. No matter what, you need to know your tools. So if they tell you need to brown this, then you know it needs to be brown. Or they say, cook the onions until they're soft and translucent. That tells you something about what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? And if it takes 2 minutes on yours and it takes 4 minutes on something else, it's not really so important.
Absolutely. I think for cooktops, there's constant visual clues for people because it's right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that's in the oven, it's a little bit harder to monitor because for certain dishes, you do not want to be opening the oven all the time. There are even some baked goods that could collapse if you're constantly opening and closing.
Sponge cakes are terrible.
Yeah, pâte à choux is like that. It can easily collapse if you check too early. So it helps to have at least rough idea. And of course, what the recipes are telling you, it's a rough idea. It's not anything precise.
Yes. But I mean, with baking bread, I'll, take out the bread and measure the internal temperature, for example. And if it's not high enough, I'll go on. I've actually stopped doing that because I found out that the bread actually finishes long before it has the color I'd like it to have. So it doesn't really matter. And it's at some point, it's just going to be 1 degree shy of boiling. 99 Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's going to be that, and that means I usually say cook it until it's to your liking, and then it'll still be finished. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The problem is if people have an oven that's not calibrated, and I think that happens too. I don't know if I've never seen any way to calibrate my oven, but I think some ovens are just bad at temperatures. So people are cooking something and they set it to, let's say, 400 degrees, but it's really more like 375.
Yes, that happens all the time.
And
I think that for gas ovens, you could have a technician adjust it. I don't know of a way to adjust it myself, but I don't know for electric ovens. I bet there is some way to calibrate it, but I don't think people can do it themselves. I think
I don't think so.
Technician.
And I think modern ovens are just much better at it and they come pre-calibrated. And before it was just like they just put on. I mean, I remember like how ovens used to be. It just said 1 to 6 or something. It didn't really say temperatures. And then they started putting temperatures on there, but I think they just kind of replaced it. They're like, yeah, if it's a 6, it's 225, and if it's 5, then it's this much. And then it could still be 10 to 20 degrees off, I think. But I think the newer ones have temperature sensors inside, and they will, turn that temperature up if it's not high enough, and they'll turn it down if it's too high. And that also, in my oven, it comes with a probe thermometer as well. So you can, like, let's say you want to make what do you call it?
Like a big roast, you can stick it inside
a roast. You just put it inside, and then you can say, I want it to be
it.
this many degrees, which I guess rivals sous vide. So then, like, if you want a super red one, you go for 54, 56 degrees, and then the oven turns off when it's done. I mean, it'll give you an idea of when it's going to be done.
Oh. Wow. Very cool.
So that seems like a smart feature, but I think that's actually just, it's not a manual, or it is a manual feature in a sense, because you're choosing it. It's not like my old oven, the Electrolux, had all these different programs, all this different stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool, I want that. And then when I had it, I'm like, I don't want that. I'm never going to use like a chicken program. I know how to make a chicken.
Oh, yeah. There's some in the United States that have a perfect turkey button. You just click a button, ta-da, you get a perfect turkey. But yeah, of course, I prefer ovens that give me control.
Yes. I think learning your tools and learning when something is done and using a thermometer while you're cooking is the things that make you a better cook. Because then you could make it anywhere.
Thank you so much for having me, Sune. I think this was a really interesting discussion, and I hope that it helps our viewers know what we're testing our recipes on and how they might need to adjust them when they cook from them and bake from them.
All right, now it's time for you guys to go to Helen's channel and check out the video on cooktops and what the difference is between those in Europe and the States.
As you can hear, there are many differences between European and American ovens. Understanding these nuances will empower you to navigate recipes from different sources confidently. Okay, so I promised you an update on what's going on in my life. I want to reassure you that I'm not planning to stop making videos, even though life has thrown me some unexpected challenges. After I got back from my vacation in the US with my fiance, I discovered that I had an infection in one of my toes. It turned out to be quite severe, and I was admitted to the hospital and had emergency surgery. Nobody was worried about the initial wound, but it healed slowly, so I was transferred to a wound healing ward. They did their magic and the wound finally started to heal. After 3.5 weeks in the hospital, I finally got to go home. The wound is still not healed, but I can live a perfectly normal life while the healing is going on. To throw another spanner in the works, I got laid off from my job. During this period of low output, I express my deep gratitude for your continued support and understanding. While actively searching for a new job, I'm committed to keeping the videos coming. Thank you for bearing with me. As you may know, I dream of running this channel full time, but it's never been financially valuable. I haven't lost faith in the possibility, and I will keep making the best quality videos possible. If you'd like to support the channel, your contribution is crucial, and I'm genuinely grateful for your consideration. You can join my Patreon, buy some merch, use the super thanks, or find links for tools and ingredients in the description. I hope you learned something today. See you next time.